So, hi Jasmine. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Um, Thank you for taking the time. Um, how about you just start by telling us a bit about yourself and what you do and how you got to where you are today?
Thank you very much for your invitation. Hello, everyone. My name is Yasmine Werner, and in my previous life, I was working as a civil servant for the city of Frankfurt. But I have reinvented myself in the last few years. I was working in a startup, in corporates, but also in a consulting firm. And yeah, in my former job, I hosted the Workaround podcast, which was basically all about HR tech and the future of work. That brought me to my current position. I'm currently working for Axel Springer People and Culture as an expert for new work and new workspace. And our team helped more than 3,000 people through the cultural change of the new workplace concept in the Axel Springer building. And yeah, maybe also personal wise, I'm a passionate runner. I love marathon running, and I'm a host of the Happy Works podcast, which deals with the topics of happiness and success at the workplace.
Wow, that's very interesting. So you've actually done quite a lot. So you talk about new work. Could you tell me a bit more about where you personally think the future of new work is heading?
Yes, so I will try it because it's a very broad and actually difficult question. But I think that COVID-19 is a catalyst for redesign of work and for new ways of working. So yeah, on the one hand, the coronavirus has led to many job losses, to deaths, and to disruption of the workplace. But at the same time, it is accelerating the workplace changes. That means the ability to work remotely, flexibly, and there's also a new awareness for empathy and for new leadership skills. So at the end, the question still remains, what will the post-pandemic workplace look like? And if only people who are privileged and who have no family at home and who can work easily from home benefit from that, or if organizations are able to create a better workplace that prioritizes diversity, inclusion, and equity.
Do you think, when looking at the current situation, obviously we've all adapted a lot to Zoom and the use of Zoom, and to be honest, I'm guessing that it's all growing out of our ears slowly, the word Zoom. Um, do you still think that we will be relying much more on it in the future, or do you think there will have to be a change in the way we do this social distancing, communication online? Or even when Corona is over, do you still think Zoom will be something we will use a lot more?
I mean, in the moment, we are all in a global remote working experiment. And I don't know if it's only Zoom, but we will definitely use more collaboration tools such as Zoom, Slack, Microsoft Teams, and whatever. So I think it's clear that there won't be so many business trips anymore in the future because managers realize that it's in most cases not really necessary. And I would also like to raise up the question to really think about, do we really need this meeting? Because I know a lot of people, they have meeting after meeting today, which is actually much worse than before Corona. And in some cases, like a short message is absolutely sufficient. And yeah, and now to come back or to think about, will the future of work or the future of the workplace only be on Zoom? I don't think so, because in my opinion, the office as a place should not be forgotten, because I think the message to employees is super important. We have a place for you here, and you are welcome here. And I see a remote office only as a great addition, but not as a permanent alternative. But of course, there is no one size fits it all, and every organization has to find out the right fit for itself. And I would leave you with a question in that part, to think about: if there's only one day in the week that you can come to the office, what would you do in the office? And hopefully it's not working in Excel sheets.
I hope so too. You mentioned your Happy Work podcast. Could you tell us a bit more about that, and how you came up with the idea of the podcast and like why you do it?
Yeah, the Happy Works podcast is like a project of the heart. I don't know if you can translate it like that, but it's so much fun. And it's an interview podcast with guests coming from very diverse backgrounds. There are HR people, but there are also artists, scientists, and so on. And we speak about different perspectives on the terms of happiness and success at the workplace. I'm doing it together with my co-host. She's called Eva Resch, and we are doing everything from the speakers acquisition to production to post-production and to marketing.
Wow, okay. That's really cool. And how did the actual idea emerge?
So I actually met my co-host Eva via LinkedIn, and a couple of lunch dates later, we realized that we have a lot in common, and then we decided to start a project together. We came up with that idea to start a podcast with a focus on happiness and success, because we think for many people that's a major challenge to manage that balancing act. And yeah, at the end, you can ask 5 people about their definition of happiness, and you will get 5 different answers. And I think that's what it makes it so exciting. And yeah, I think happiness is an inside job. And yesterday I read a nice quote, which is very old, but maybe you haven't heard it before. It's by Rumi, and he said, "Yesterday I was smart and I wanted to change the world, but today I am wise and I will change myself." I know it's very cheesy, but actually I like it.
No, but it's cool. And it's true. I think that's one of those secrets that people have to maybe process in life, that everyone expects everything else to change, but the change must start from within, as cheesy as that sounds. But yeah, totally agree. So listening to all those definitions of happiness and talking to all these different diverse personalities, who do you think, obviously I'm sure there are a lot of different inspirational guests you've had, all in their different personal ways, but who do you think was the most inspiring to you?
Yeah, that's really a tough question, because the selection is so diverse. We had in episode 1 Miriam Junge. She's a psychologist, and she was speaking about microhabits. Then we had in a very recent episode Julian Reichelt, who is the editor-in-chief of Bild. He's a very controversial personality, but yeah, who inspired me the most is Jan Teunen. he called himself as a cultural capital producer, and I really hang on his lips when he's speaking. He, for example, says that the office work is in a fundamental crisis, and the problem is the lack of humanity. He's speaking about beauty and that offices need to be greenhouses for creativity. So he brings a completely new perspectives in that discourse. And yeah, that's what I really, really liked. And I think he can explain it much better than I do. So if you're interested in listening to it, I think it's episode 4. Just tune in.
Thank you. I definitely will. So when going back now onto like your career as a whole, what do you think you would have maybe done slightly differently if you had the chance, or would you do something differently?
It's a clear yes. So it doesn't mean that I regret anything, because otherwise I wouldn't be where I am today, and I'm really happy today. But if I would have the chance to do something differently, it would be the following. So let's go back to my very first job in Frankfurt. I told you in the beginning that I was working as a civil servant. And although I knew it at the very first day through my intuition, I worked there for 7 years in total. And 7 years is really a long time. But yeah, sometimes due to the lack of inexperience, alternatives, because sometimes you really don't know, you often go for the second best or for the third best, and you don't ask the right questions and then go into an unsatisfying situation. So if I could change that, probably I would quit that earlier.
So I'm assuming if I'd ask you now what your best career decision was quitting that. Like, even though it took slightly like a longer time, but you got there eventually.
Yeah, that's true. So I think the best decision was to leave Frankfurt after 7 years. And not because I didn't like it there. So some of my best friends still live there and I really love the city. But for me, it was great to really jump out of my comfort zone and to become more open-minded and courageous to start something new.
Yeah, I totally understand. Um, Now, what do you think is the best part about your job now?
Yeah. So I think we really have to understand that change is the only consistent in life. So you have changes permanently in your life. You have different, how do you say it? Stages in your life. You're a child, student, grown up. You create your own family. And what I really like that our team finds strategies for the people to successfully accompany that change and to hopefully find ways for the employees to become a more fulfilled professional, but then also private life.
Okay, um I'm really interested to hear. You mentioned that you hear all these definitions about happiness. What is your definition of happiness?
Oh, that's I don't have it so super spontaneous, but my definition of happiness is having a lot of time. So time is a very important factor for me to create and to implement the projects that I'm really caring about. And that's the one thing. with your friends, but also with your family. And when that all comes together, then happiness is there for me.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I think that would be my dream as well, to have
Yeah.
to be able to manage my time however I could or I wanted to. Um, so yeah, I agree. So 2020 has been a really difficult year for us all. I think everyone was hoping that 2020 would be their year. But yeah, sadly, it was a bit of a nightmare. Um, but in the entrepreneurial world, we usually find difficulties and challenges to be more of an opportunity. How do you think the pandemic has changed you and has maybe made you view the world in a different way?
I have to think about that. So, as you mentioned, there happened a lot of bad things. So, I think it's really important to be grateful for what you have. So, I'm really lucky that there were not so many changes in my work life because I could do my job like before. And on the one hand, we also got so much more time, and I really used it to self-reflect and to think about, okay, what can I make more out of the new flexibility, and how can I use my time differently? And on the other hand, I think there's really a need or lack of more emotional intelligence at the workplace. And yeah, how to create the real human connection these times, I think that's still a big challenge. I still have no clue how to fulfill that correctly.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I think that's the problem about the situation, that no one really does know, and there doesn't seem to be a clear right or wrong yet, because we're all just figuring it out. But um, yeah, I totally agree with the time factor. Um, I'd even say that the fact that that Zoom is has taken such a big portion of our lives now, or Skype, business Skype or whatever, all these different things. It's proving how much the actual personal contact to people does actually have its importance, and we can't rely only on digital networking and communication. But yeah, I totally agree with the time factor. Now, actually, we have arrived at the end of our interview already. However, we do have one tradition at EBSpreneurship, that we ask one question that is slightly out of the ordinary. So our question to you, it's a bit weird, is if you were an object, what would it be?
Yeah. Okay, so either I would be a villa in Los Angeles, because normally I would be on a plane to California right now to stay there for a couple of months, but that's actually not possible at the moment. Or I would be a microphone, because that combines all of my passions. So I really love singing and moderation and speaking. And I have some friends who are really afraid of speaking into a microphone because their own voice is so loud then. But actually for me, it's like a real push, and I enjoy it when I'm having the chance being on a stage to spread the word about topics that I really care about.
Wow, that's a really, really good answer. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Jasmine, for having this talk with us and telling us a bit more about yourself. And we hope to welcome you perhaps next year in 2021 at a official congress. Yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me, and yeah, hope to see you soon in person.
Goodbye, Jasmine.